Console, online. HPG connection, online. Educational module, online. All systems, nominal.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast. Today we are talking about the Orion, and today your hosts are myself, Brent Stewart McKee, and
I'm Joshua.
So as I said, today we're talking about the Orion, which is an iconic design that has been on the battlefield since its introduction. It's a workhorse. It's your meat and potatoes.
It's one of the solid heavy mechs that exists at all points and times in the Battletech universe.
Mm-hmm. In fact, in canon, it is referred to often as the poor man's Atlas, and also one of the first mechs we have that has an asymmetrical design of its chassis. So you have the missile launchers up on the left shoulder, replacing the entire joint effectively, and then you have the more traditional right shoulder going down to the right arm and gun barrel.
Yeah, I believe it's got a medium laser in each of those arms, so most models are going to have anything more than that.
Yeah, most of the weapons tend to be on the torso of this chassis. It also definitely has a somewhat bug design centering around its cockpit.
Yeah, and the artwork for that cockpit definitely gets better as time goes on, though ironically it's the Experimental TRO Primitive Orion that has the best artwork right now. Although we are getting brand new artwork for the Kickstarter, and it looks amazing.
All of the artwork from the Kickstarter looks amazing. The design quirks for the Orion are that it is an anti-aircraft targeting, easy to maintain, and a rugged of 1. Easy to maintain means that you get a bonus on the maintenance rolls, and rugged means you get a reduction on maintenance time.
I believe a number of them also have ammunition feed problems.
Yes, but I have noted those on the individual mechs themselves.
I just bring it up because that's one of the features of both the Orion H prototype and main production, the classic Orion 1K.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a problem that in 500 years they haven't figured out. I'd also like to point out that this is the first battle mech, as far as we know, that was designed after the Lyran Commonwealth stole the designs for the Mackie.
Yes, in fact, its research and development was spurred by that fact. The Terran hegemony knew that they wouldn't be the only ones fielding battle mechs forever, and so they developed many different chassis to fill out the roles on the evolving battlefield. The one they developed that turned into the Orion started out with the ON1C, and it was developed to be a heavy attack mech, effectively. It was developed by General Mechanics on Mars, so another GM, but not the GM we're used to. It was designed in 2453, and it had a lot of speed behind it with its engines, but unfortunately it lacked any real punch because its weaponry was limited to an AC-5 in its right torso, and then a medium laser in the left and arm each. So the damage total is 15, which is not an effective punch for a heavy mech.
We should be clear here that it's got a lot of speed relative to the era. It caps out at just over 64 kilometers an hour, or a 4.6 movement profile, which is the standard movement for most later Oni K and beyond designs. But because it's still primitive, it's still running those non-standardized, non-refined fusion engines and other components. They weigh so much more that it's a 4.6, but it doesn't have room to carry hardly anything.
Yeah, that primitive engine just fills up the torso almost completely. And so along with that, it also has the primitive cockpit, a prototype AC-10, and primitive armor. The battle value for this guy is 973, and the point value is 27. It also has 10 heat sinks, and with an alpha strike, you're looking at a total damage of 7, so it is quite heat efficient.
Yeah, because that AC-5's not doing a lot of heat. Those medium lasers are 3 heat apiece, so you're doing pretty good.
Lots of room to spare.
The second design, after the ON1C was rejected because it didn't have enough firepower, was the ON1H. This is the one where we really start to see the standard layout of the Orion we're used to, with prototype autocannon 10 in the right torso, 2 LRM-5s in the left torso, SRM in the left arm, and a medium laser in each of the arms. Again, it's a prototype AC-10. It's LRM-5s instead of an LRM-15 or an LRM-20, but we are getting that classic Orion 1K design we're used to. In order to do it, though, they had to drop the speed down a bracket to 50 kilometers an hour, or 3.5 in hexes, which pushes this back down into kind of the assault mech range, although it's still kind of the assault and heavy speed range for this primitive prototype period.
It keeps pace with all its contemporaries.
It also bumps up its armor by 50%, from 14.5 tons of primitive armor to 21 tons of primitive armor. Its battle value is 1,199, and its point value is 38.
This one was the first one to be mass-produced. It started rolling off the assembly lines in 2456, and it has a ammo feed 10 problem, as well as an easy-to-maintain and obsolete by 2525 quirk. Also, with all of the weapons and no added heat sinks, it does suffer from some heat management issues, but the brass decided that that's something that a competent mech warrior could handle in the field.
And why did it go obsolete in 2525, Brent?
Became obsolete because the next model came out, and it is the ON1K, rolling off the assembly lines in 2525. This design was predominant in the recapture of Hesperus II and during the reunification wars. For armaments, it's got an AC-10, no longer a primitive, in the right torso, an LRM-15 in the left torso, an SRM-4 in the left torso, and then a medium laser in each arm, respectively.
Basically, the autocannon and the LRMs have been upgraded. The AC-10 is no longer primitive, and you go from 10 tubes of 2 LRM-5s to 15 tubes in one LRM-15.
It still retains its armor value,
although it drops back down to the 14.5 tons of the original, but since it's modern armor, it doesn't lose any armor points.
And again, this unit suffers from the heat management issues just like the previous iteration because it doesn't add any heat sinks. So you're still only able to sink 10 heat a turn, but you can alpha strike with a total of 17, and that's not counting movement. So you have to be careful about how you use those medium lasers and LRMs.
And this guy does bump the movement profile back up to 4.6 or 64 kilometers an hour. This is the classic one that you see in any video game that has the Orion. They've got the K. This is the one that you see fielded a lot on the tabletop. It's got heat problems, but it's decently well as a bracket fighter, using that LRM-15 and AC-10 at longer ranges, and then dropping the LRM-15 and picking up the medium lasers and SRM-4 once you get closer.
With the standardization of technology, the battle value jumps up to 1429, and the point value goes to 39.
Just a little 1-point increase to reflect that. No longer prototype AC in the larger LRM.
Mm-hmm. So the 1K has one variant, which is the ON1K Kerensky. Do you want to tell us about this one, Josh?
Yeah, so as the name might suggest, this is the mech driven by Alexander Kerensky, hero of the Star League, the man who defeated Amaris and fled the Inner Sphere with the SLDF to prevent it from being turned on the denizens of the universe. It's got a few kind of prototype designs itself. Some of this technology didn't used to come out until the Federated Commonwealth Civil War, but they've kind of retconned it a little bit that there were prototype versions in this time period. The weapon I'm referencing in particular is the experimental snub-nose PPC that this Orion 1NK Kerensky is armed with. It also upgrades the SRM-4 to include Artemis 4 fire control. And in the right torso, it has a Gauss rifle instead of the autocannon 10. In order to fit the experimental snub-nose PPC, they dropped the LRM-15. So you lose the LRM-15 and the AC-10, but you gain an experimental snub-nose PPC and a Gauss rifle.
Yeah, you drop the ability for indirect fire, but you gain a lot of direct fire punch.
And then it's also had its armor upgraded from standard to ferrofibrous, and case has been added, probably to keep that Gauss rifle from wrecking the engine. And interesting note, the reason I think they added this Kerensky variant fairly recently is they wanted to establish that experimental snub-nose PPC from the end of the Star League is what led to the clans developing their version of the extended range PPC, which has no minimum range, unlike the Inner Sphere ER PPC.
And of course it has that damage profile that is dependent on the distance as well.
We can talk more about the snub-nose PPC when it becomes common, though.
Indeed.
Battle value for the Orion Kerensky is 1,821, and the Alpha Strike point value for the Kerensky is 41.
So the M was designed with fighting the clans in mind, and it had its first baptism by fire when Clan Jade Falcon incurred into Larian space to take Coventry, and it definitely proved its stripes in that engagement and has become a staple of the Inner Sphere garrisons and armed forces ever since. It is mass-produced by the Free World League.
Again, M for Merrick.
Yep, is the first version of the Orion to have double heat sinks. And the reason it is so prolific throughout all of the Inner Sphere is because before this, Merrick had a monopoly on manufacturing of the chassis, whereas the other successor states could manufacture parts to maintain them. They weren't able to manufacture the chassis en masse since they didn't have the factories. But with the aid of the Wolf's Dragoons negotiating a armistice within the Inner Sphere to fight the clans, the Free World League kicked into overdrive and just started exporting these to everyone who could pay, because that's what wartime finance looks like.
Interestingly enough, the Free Worlds League is kind of like pseudo-Space America, and during the clan invasion, they became Space America in World War II. We were given the UK and the Commonwealth's Lend-Lease items, and the Free Worlds League was basically doing that for the nations fighting the clan invasion.
They were instrumental to the supply chain before they actively joined the theaters of war.
What makes it so special in that firepower category that it gets a brand new classification?
Well, it has a whole new weapon system to this mech, specifically the NARC, and that's in the center torso. It replaces the AC-10 with a LB-10X AC in the right torso. The left torso still has an SRM-4. The medium lasers in the right and left arm are a staple of this design. You're not going to see those change a whole lot. But the left arm now has a LRM-20 in it, so it shifts the weapons rack from the left torso to the arm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the NARC will help with all of the missiles hitting home.
Yep, it's pretty cool that they finally moved away from the autocannon 10 and fixed the ammunition feed problem with the new LB-10X.
And this one has a double heat sinks, and they also added an extra one so it can sink 22 heat. With an Alpha Strike, you're looking at 17 heat generated, so even at a run, you're still venting more than you're generating. Very heat efficient, which is what you want when you're fighting the clans.
Yep. Now that is a lot of new equipment, and they haven't taken any hit in speed. All of the armor factor has gone down by a half ton. How do they pay for all of that?
There is an XL fusion engine that they've installed. The battle value for this guy is going to be 1414, and the point value is 36.
The M spawned a variety of M-related variants, MA, MB, MC, MD, and most of those are minor tweaks to the basic M model. The MA removes the NARC missile beacon and upgrades the SRM-4 to an SRM-6 and gives both missile launchers Artemis 4. The staple medium lasers are replaced with medium pulse lasers. The MB swaps the LBX-10 for a light Gauss rifle and upgrades the medium lasers to extended range medium lasers, so it gets a little bit more of a ranged snipery role there with the light Gauss and an LRM-20. And then the MC gets rid of the LRM-20, the SRM-4, and the NARC, so everything missile-related is gone, and replaced with a medium-range missile launcher, or actually a pair of them. An MRM-20 replaces the LRM-20, and an MRM-30 is crammed into where the SRM-4 was. And that one also adds a C3 slave. So the battle values for the M series, the ON1M is 1,414, point value is 36. The MA is 1,501 for BV, 40 for PV. MB is 1,472, battle value, 36 point value. The MC is 1,501 and 40, so it's basically the same as the MA.
There's also the MD, which keeps the NARC, the medium lasers, the LRM-20, and the SRM-4, but swaps out the 10X for a rotary AC-5, which of course is my co-host's favorite type of AC.
I love rotary 5s. They're great on tabletop. They're good in MechWarrior Online. They're just all around good.
And all of these ones that we talked about still have a movement of 4 and 6 across the board. The MD is going to have a battle value of 1597 and a point value of 40. The last of the M's are ON1M-DC, and the DC stands for Command Mech. So this one has a option to have a ton of SRM ammo removed in order to have a dual command couch installed.
So actually, the ON1M-DC removes 1 ton of SRM, 1 ton of NARC, and 1 double heatsink. So it removes 2 tons of ammo and 1 ton of heatsinks to place a command console in it. And Brent, do you want to talk about what a command console is?
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with them on the tabletop, but in the fiction, they are a co-pilot seat. Usually what happens is you have the commander who is not actively piloting the mech, but is coordinating the front actively on the battlefield. That allows real-time direction, allowing for hands-on interaction. There's a lot of pros. There's also some cons, which are that the command can get taken out.
Yeah, so the reason you don't generally see them on tabletop or you don't run them a lot is you're really starting to get into some of the esoteric rules. Usually it's kind of, if you're just going real simple, it'll maybe give initiative bonus. Where you start to really see command consoles come into play in the games is either with Battle Force or Alpha Strike, where that command console starts letting you get leadership abilities, or in the case of Alpha Strike, that mech headquarters ability to influence the battlefield if you're playing with those variant rules.
I did not know that. Thanks for increasing my knowledge.
Point values for the ON1M-DC is 1,444. Point value is 37. So that brings us to the Orion 1V, which is actually an older model and is kind of a field upgrade or post-Star League refit variant of the 1K. The Orion 1V moves the SRM launcher on the K into the arm, and it adds another one to the left arm, and it adds additional ton of ammunition to the SRMs. Basically, they're making the 1V a bit more of a brawler with an SRM4 in each arm, but in order to fit that there, they had to drop the armor protection, which is not something you necessarily want to do, because you're basically dropping from 14.5 tons of standard armor to 11.5 tons of armor.
It also, being a retrofit, has the drawback of not having double heat sinks, so you're only sinking 10 heat a turn. With the extra armaments, that, again, is a knife's edge you're walking.
Battle value for the Orion 1V is 1,298. Point value of 35. So you can see even the point value system does not take that lower armor rating very well.
This guy also has a variant of the ON1-V-DC, again for the command console. So it drops 3 tons of ammo, 1 SRM ton, 1 LRM ton, and 1 AC-10 ton.
Trading that endurance for command console.
Which would make sense, because if you're on the battlefield, you don't want to be on the very front, so you're not going to need to expend ammunition as much as the frontline mech warrior.
Yeah, and we should probably note that the whole concept behind the DC is harkening back to the kind of medieval knight general who's standing on the hill in the middle of the battlefield directing his cavalry and his pikemen and stuff by actually watching what they're doing, rather than the more modern general in a tent somewhere in the rear watching satellite feeds and directing troops that way. So it may seem odd and kind of silly to put it up there, but you got to remember the setting we're in. It's very much a knightly, direct combat setting rather than a beyond visual range warfare we're used to today.
Mm-hmm. The battle value for that guy is 1310, and the point value is 35.
The Orion 1V also has another variant, the Orion 1VA. It knows it wants to brawl, so they kept the armor, they added 6 heat sinks, and they dropped the LRM-15. So get rid of that long-range saturation fire to ramp the armor back up and make you more heat efficient so you can get in close and truly brawl. And the battle value on this guy is 1,328. The point value is 39. It's getting back up towards that 1K cost.
So the next iteration is the ON2M, which is a radical overhaul done on Hesperus 2 in the Lyran Alliance, and it replaces the frame with an endo steel, freeing up tonnage, but of course trading that off for space. It's got a overhaul on its weapon system as well. It gets rid of the AC entirely and puts in a Gauss rifle. Be Still My Beating Heart.
Yeah, it's nice.
It also upgrades the LRM-15 with a Artemis 4. You have a medium pulse laser in the left torso, and then the medium pulse lasers in right arm and the left arm. Also has the 10 double heat sinks, so you're losing 1 overall, but you're still double, so you're doing better than the Vs.
Yeah, this is just optimized.
Yeah, and the armor hasn't dropped in any way, so it still can hold its own on the battlefield.
The LRM-15 is a little bit of a downgrade from an LRM-20, but that addition of the Artemis 4 fire control system, statistically speaking, classic Battletech, that +2 from the Artemis gives you the same number of missile hits as an LRM-20. So
it evens out.
Yeah, the big difference here is you could have fired a NARC at them, then fired your LRMs and gotten the NARC bonus, which is the same thing as an Artemis bonus. So it's kind of a reliability thing. We don't have to try to hit with that NARC to get our +2, but we're downgrading to an LRM-15, so we basically get the same number of hits as we would if we were an LRM-20 without NARC. Just kind of a reliability. Like I said, this 2M is really a refinement of the 1M.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to note that this one drops the SRM launcher.
It does. It replaces it with the said medium pulse laser, which of course has the -2 to hit, which is always nice to have.
You've got 1 less ammo source to worry about exploding. You've got 1 less ammo source to worry about reloading. This 2M is probably one of the better Orion variants.
I would agree with that. And it keeps the movement of 4 and 6, just like all its brethren, but it has a regular fusion drive as opposed to the XL like some of its contemporaries. This guy also has a version which has been announced, but we don't have a record sheet of it yet. It is the ON2-MC, the Clan Wolf Empire version, and they throw on some ferrofibrous armor onto that guy and just upgrade all the systems to clan tech. We haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited. That's the Orion I really want to pilot.
That's going to be a beefy boy. Not going to lie, you just blew my mind with the fact that the 2M has a standard fusion engine. It's got all that firepower. Like I really don't feel like it downgrades from the 1M at all in terms of firepower. Like Endo Steel is probably the first upgrade you should put on any mech. It does so much for you, especially a heavy mech.
Absolutely.
I don't see how Endo Steel doesn't give you that much weight savings.
Well, you're also saving space and tonnage with the reduction in ammo.
True, there's a little bit of reduction there. You've also got ferrofibrous, which means more armor for less tonnage, or in this case, it's about the same. This thing is so much better than I thought, and I can't figure out how they saved all this weight. Just blowing my mind.
So it also got rid of the NARC and all of its ammo. It dumped at least 2 tons of SRM ammo and the launcher.
SRM-4 is 2 tons.
So that's 4. You're getting 3 tons net positive with the medium pulse laser being put in. You're also getting 3 critical slots.
So dropping the SRM-4 pays the tonnage to upgrade your mediums to pulses and to add that 3rd medium. And then dropping that NARC saves you 5 tons.
You also drop a couple tons with the LRM-20 getting downgraded to a 15.
Yep, you save 2 tons there because of the Artemis bumps the weight up on the LRM-15 a little bit. But then the Gauss rifle, so we've saved 7 tons. The Gauss rifle is 17 tons, so that is a 4-ton gain. So we've got 3 tons in accounting plus 1.5 tons.
Because the standard engine, you're going to get more space, but you're also going to get increase in tonnage, and that's about what the XL engine gives you, I think. The back of the envelope math works.
Okay.
Got there?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I can't believe how good this 2M is.
Oh, it's a gorgeous ride.
Add that to my Alpha Strike army.
So the next upgrade, or the next version to see production, or at the very least to see a mech foot hit the floor, is the ON3MX.
This guy's nuts.
He's He's weird.
This is from Experiment Technical Readout Merrick, and I'm not going to lie, I scrolled right past this Orion because he does not look like an Orion.
The improved heavy Gauss rifle is in the center and right torso, and because of that, the art shifts it, so it looks almost like a brand new design. In addition, the left shoulder has been much more rounded, and the launcher is kind of more under the armpit as opposed to being the actual shoulder.
They've kind of rounded the whole top section as well.
So it's got that improved heavy Gauss rifle. You want to tell us about that?
Like, if you like the regular Gauss rifle, the heavy Gauss rifle should make you happier because that's 25 points of damage at your short range bracket.
Sir, you had my attention. Now you have my curiosity.
Yes. The problem with the standard heavy Gauss rifle is you start at 25 and then you decrease in damage from there. The improved heavy Gauss rifle, it's a flat 22 points of damage at short, medium, and long range. And it's slightly shorter range than a standard Gauss rifle, but I mean, you're better than an AC-20 and you're significantly longer range than an AC-20. The improved heavy Gauss rifle is a terrifying weapon.
But it's also plagued with a bunch of mechanical issues, especially in this design.
Yeah, and it's just so heavy. You know, you're paying 20 tons for 22 points of damage. It's so heavy.
And it was designed by the Kaliyama Weapons Industries, and it was very much a make-work project for their mech department until they could find a more profitable and accepted design that they could sell and move the people onto.
Yeah, this was kind of a design study, like how far can we push the Orion? So we're talking 550 years later, what can we do with this chassis?
What new toys can we put in this box?
Yep. They also have an extended range LRM-10, which is designed to do exactly what it says on the label, push that range on the LRMs out. The extended range LRM-10 has a long range of 38 hexes, a medium range of 22 hexes, a short range of 12 hexes, minimum range of 10 hexes. To give the listener some idea, the standard LRM has a minimum range of 6 hexes, a short range of 7 hexes, a medium range of 14 hexes, and a long range of 21 hexes. So the extended range LRM has a medium range longer than the long range of the standard LRM. 2 map hexes, if you're playing on maps, so short edge to short edge, so making it as long as possible, is 35 hexes, because each map sheet is 17 and then a half hex. So you're talking 35 hexes for 2 map sheets set so they're as long as possible. And this guy has a range further than that.
Yeah, I feel like this is something you want to take on a very large battlefield or a large engagement. So you're probably going to see it in Mega Mech more than anything.
Yeah, but again, it's got that medium range of 22 hexes. So you're at medium range when everybody else who's toting LRMs is still at long range. So, I mean, that's really why you take it. Your long range, you're not going to hit on with that +4 anyway. Nobody really hits at long range unless they're really good pilots.
This is true.
Everybody else is at long range. They can't touch you, and you can reach out and touch them at medium range. It's just nuts.
That increase in the dice rolls will definitely help.
Who cares that your short range is 12 hexes and your minimum range is 10 hexes? Because at that point, they're in your medium range for that improved heavy Gauss rifle, and you're smacking them around with 22 points of damage a hit.
No, you're just coring them.
Yeah, this thing is experimental. It's expensive. It's restricted for most games. You can't use it, but this MX is definitely all the fun toys of a prototype kind of proof of concept design.
I look forward to seeing the improved heavy Gauss in a weapons platform that can properly wield it.
Fafnir.
So when this guy graduated from being a prototype in 3086, it had a battle value of 1849 and a point value of 40, and it evolved into the ON3M, so it just dropped the X for experimental. They had some orders come in for it, and then unfortunately it was shelved because of the cancellations of the contracts, mostly due to the rebuilding and retooling of the economies after the jihad, and the pressure from the Republic of the Sphere to de-escalate and demilitarize everything.
Devlin Stone's Battlemechs to Plowshares initiative.
So this guy was sold at a loss for the company in most cases and sold in large batches.
Which is nice if you're a mercenary.
Oh, absolutely. But it's still a nice piece of tech. So it has a movement of 4 and 6. It's got a tag in the head. It downgrades the improved heavy Gauss to just a regular Gauss rifle in the left torso. It has a ER medium laser in the right and left arm, as is tradition. And it has the extended range LRM-15s still. So we didn't lose that at least.
And we added a tag. Your ELRM-15 actually bumped up from that 10. This one, I don't know. The 2M is such a refinement of the 1M. The 2M is such a good mech. But this one goes back to an XL engine, and all you're really getting for that XL engine is the ELRM-15.
I think I'd still take the 2 over this, but I'd take this over a 1 any day of the week.
Yeah, but I mean, you love your Gauss rifles, so.
Guilty as charged. So it has a battle value of 1826 and a point value of 37. It also has the design quirk of difficult to eject, easy to maintain, and rumble seat.
That difficult to eject is another reason I'd take the 2M over it.
We can just add it to the list of reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. The 3MX, it's like going out and checking out a Bugatti Veyron. It's insane. It's cool. It's completely impractical, but it's so cool. And then the 3M's like, we're chucking out pretty much all the bells and whistles.
Well, like I said, I'm really looking forward to the Clan Wolf Empire version.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, we're probably going to see a lot more kind of C variants, going away from the 2C just to a C variant that's a straight clan tech upgrade, because the developers are going to want to kind of level the technology playing field, kind of bring everything back to that more introductory tech feel, but with clan tech and some of the other cool high-tech Innersphere toys.
So now that we've gone down the list of all the models, how do we feel about this guy overall? Because to me, it's, as I said at the beginning, it's iconic both for its prolificness and also for its design. You see it walk on the battlefield, that boxy body, the giant triangle on the left shoulder, the 2 cylinders for hands. You're just like, got it. I know what I'm fighting.
So I'm not gonna lie. I used to hate this mech, and it really just came down to the artwork.
Oh, the original artwork is garbage. Like, it is aesthetically mixed with all the rest. It fits. I'm not trying to throw shade at the artist or anything like that, but the artist didn't capture its good side.
The original art for the 1K is clunky and ugly, and it's a monstrosity. The 1M, which was supposed to be somewhat newer art, still has that really weird, disproportionate, just doesn't look functional. Now, I'm not throwing shade on the artist. I can't draw this well, so props to them. I'd never seen the MX before. Like I said, I thought it was an Ost at first, so that art is terrible.
It does not look like an Orion. It looks like a different chassis altogether. I can see how it moved to that, but I feel like it has lost the spirit of what makes an Orion an Orion.
It was ugly. I didn't like it. I never used it, never touched it, never played with it. And then I got the HBS Battletech game. And when it first came out, there weren't a whole lot of heavy mech designs, and one of the ones that was in was the Orion. And so it was one of those, I need a heavy mech. All I have is an Orion. I'll run the Orion. And it was a bruiser. And I ran it stock. And that 1K just, it went and it went and it went, and it did everything I asked of it. And the HBS art for it was solid. Much better than the old art. And then I got a 1V, and its lack of armor sucked, so I think I probably turned it into a 1VA, kept the armor up, made some switches so it would be real reliable up close. Again, great mech. So I've gone from absolutely loathing the Orion to, hey, this new art for HBS, for MechWarrior Online, Kickstarter art looks amazing, and going, this is a solid heavy mech. It's got armor, it's got guns. I'm not going to say this is my favorite battle mech, but the Orion has a new place in my heart over the last year.
It's a solid second or third pick for a lance.
Yeah, and it makes a great anchor, even in a heavy lance. The mix of firepower, long and medium, the heavy armor. You grab that thing, you're like, all right, this is the anchor. We've got a Warhammer for some direct fire. We've got an Archer for some indirect fire. And then this Orion is our anchor. Throw in something else to maybe kind of skirmish. I love it. What about you, Brent?
I like it a lot. It's great. The fact that in canon, the mechanics love it because it's easy to work on just kind of warms my heart, having gone into engines on cars and stuff, and that's never fun. So anytime something's easy to maintain, I'm just like, A++. Yeah, and it has that iconic left shoulder that we've talked about a couple times, and it just...
Oh yeah, instantly recognizable.
Yeah, you just see it and you know what it is. It's not as scary as the Death Head on the Atlas or the Banshee, but it's as iconic. It's pretty standard for like a bipedal mech. It's got the regular looking legs. It's, instead of having any hand actuators, it's got the 2 cylinders ending in the weapons barrels. And not having hand actuators is a mark against it in my opinion, but it doesn't need to get in real close with all the weapons it has. So it's one of those, like, it'd be nice to have, but you know what? It's okay.
I think hand actuators are really kind of where do you fall in Battletech? You know, like when I started, I had just gotten out of the military and I was very much does this make sense from a practical military standpoint? I was like, hands are dumb. That's just more moving parts to go bad and to repair. Just end it muzzles. You don't need hands. And then I got into the Battletech universe some more. I was like, you know what? Especially for a raider mech where you're dropping onto a planet to raid, smash up somebody's factory, having hands to help load your dropship would be nice. I got into playing some campaigns and we could salvage mechs if we had enough mechs with hands to basically pick up fallen mechs and drag it off the battlefield before the enemy came back. I agree with you now that not having hand actuators is kind of a point against it, but I think if you're focusing on this is an Orion and we're a proper military, you know, we're not some mercs who are salvaging everything we can to get by, and the Orion's going to be great for that.
The thing that really sold me on hand actuators is, well, these mechs fall down and having to try and stand up using the tip of your gun barrel seems like a bad idea. That's why I prefer it.
Yeah, makes sense.
And as we mentioned, it has those little antennas, which are very reminiscent of an insect, along with the slope of the cockpit. Gives it that charm.
That's what you want to call it.
So we have some notable pilots for this chassis over the ages.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think 2 of these pilots are related to the wolves.
That would be correct. We have Sylvan Greenspan, who's a Wolf's Dragoon, who is notorious for having their Orion shot out from underneath them, but luckily they're an insomniac and a pretty good tech themselves as well, so the next morning it'll be almost shipshape.
Which is probably why it has the nickname Phoenix.
Yep.
I want to talk about Sylvan Greenspan for a second because in her notable pilot entry, it mentions that she managed to keep her mech in perfect form through the battles on Misery and Harrow's Sun until a fluke shot sent a shard of display screen into her heart, leaving her and her mech nearly pristine in death. Now, for all those Wolf's Dragoons fans out there, Aaron, Andrew, Matt, you know Misery. And for those who don't, Misery is a planet in the Draconis Combine where Wolf's Dragoons took on a large portion of the entire Draconis Combine military and won.
It's a pivotal moment in their history.
Yeah, it's a pivotal moment in the history of the Inner Sphere because the Wolf's Dragoons battling most of the Draconis Combine to a standstill kept the Draconis Combine from rolling over into the brand new Federated Commonwealth while it was busy chewing up the Capellan Confederation. But yeah, she kept her Orion in pristine condition through all of the battles on Misery. And then a fluke shot. It wasn't even her ferroglass cockpit that spalled and killed her. A fluke shot sent a piece of one of her screens into her heart and killed her. Like that.
It's tragic.
Yeah, you survive all of that. You keep your mech in shape through all of that. And then, boom, a little piece of glass from your touch screen goes through your heart. I don't know. That notable pilot entry just got to me a little bit.
Oh, it's a great story.
The other notable pilot in Technical Readout 3039 is Hauptmann Carter Prescott III, who's with the 3rd Lyran Royal Guards. Unlike most Lyran officers, he's well regarded for both his tactics and his leadership.
He's also a renowned teacher as well. He likes to use his Orion as a canvas. Each week he will paint his Orion with a different poetic, historical reenactment painting, you know, like Napoleon on the horse, that sort of thing, that is supposed to be a relative of his from the past who is a notable warrior, and he'll teach around that. Many faculty and students have questioned about how many notable warriors he's related to throughout history, but apparently he's just so good at his job that everyone's like, we'll let it slide.
Yeah. When you're that good and you do such a good job, you're allowed to be a little bit quirky.
So he serves as the house in the training academy.
Yep. The other mech warrior related to the wolves is the man himself. We talked about him a little bit earlier with his Kerensky variant, General Alexander Kerensky.
Yep. The man, the legend himself. So he piloted his Orion when he kicked down the door to arrest Stefan Amaris. It had all the nice shiny tools and bells and whistles that we discussed earlier in the episode. There's not really a whole lot to be said about the the actual mech itself, and Kerensky is... There's just so much to talk about. We'll probably just have to leave little things of note like this scattered throughout and eventually talk about him on his own dedicated episode at some point.
This entry amuses me. You remember that scene in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back when the Millennium Falcon floats away with the Star Destroyer's trash?
Yes.
That was the fate of Kerensky's Orion.
Yeah, he jettisoned it before they left because it was either beyond salvage or they had stripped it for parts. And it languished for quite a long time just floating in space until it was discovered by Theodora Kurita's aunt, and she refurbished it and gifted it to him before the Fourth Succession War, and he nicknamed it the Revenant. He piloted it up until the Fourth Succession War, at which he was overwhelmed and it was shot out from under him, but he was able to make his escape and coordinate the defense from the rear lines after that.
Yeah, can you imagine if he'd been driving that when the clans invaded?
I can only imagine what the Battle of Lithien would have been like if Smoke Jaguar had known he had that.
I am Theodore Kurita. I drive the Revenant, the Orion mech of General Alexander Kerensky. Face me if you dare. Can you imagine them losing their minds? That would have lost the Jaguars the battle right there, because they would have been so focused on bringing him down and bringing that mech back to the clans.
But it also would have brought just a berserk rage out of them too, the damage they would have wrought. Ugh, shudder.
The could-have-beens.
So, who's the last pilot we got on our list?
Lady Death Treveline.
I don't really know anything about her.
So the Lady Death is an infamous pirate from the periphery on the map. She's down southeast near the Taurian Concordat. I believe out in the Tortuga Dominions is her little pirate kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't tell by the name, and she's a pirate. She's an unpleasant person. Torture, slavery, plunder, pillage.
So steer clear. Got it.
Yes, shoot on sight.
So, the sources for our episode today are, as always, Sarna, Master Unit List, and Experimental Tech Volume 5, Experimental Tech Merrick, The Succession Wars TRO and RS, 3050 Upgrade TRO and RS, 3050 Unabridged RS, TRO Prototypes and RS, and the Battletech Battlemech Manual.
One of my sources was Technical Readout 3039. It's an older technical readout, but it checks out, sir.
Shoutouts are to the Sarna community and Wolfnet podcast community, and of course all the people listed earlier who are the Wolfnet actual podcast.
I'm going to shout out Tommy real quick there, and Charles, because I didn't mention them as the Dragoons guys, because Tommy's a pigeon and Gideon's a lore master.
I always look forward to hearing Gideon talk. His little history excerpts are great. We are supported by our Patreons at patreon.com/on the Origin of Battlemechs. Our social media on Twitter is at Origin of Mechs. We also have a dedicated channel on the Everything Battletech Discord. Feel free to stop by and say hi. If you have any questions, requests for topics, or wish to contact us, our email is ontheoriginofbattlemechs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, I encourage you to let your friends know about us and to leave a review. Special thanks to my friend Laura for the intro and outro. Hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Peace out, mech warriors.
Module complete. System standby. Would you like to load the next module?
Wait, is it my turn or your turn?
Well, you kind of screwed up the order by taking 3 of them at once.
They were minor little, like...
No, that's totally...
They put that gun in. They took this gun out, they put that gun in.
No, I get it. That's why I didn't interrupt.